First of all, I am not very good in picking the pictures, so this is only a very small picture. It might explain internal migration and international migration. So international migration involves with more effort, energy and more risk, whereas internal migration it's a bit easier to migrate. So, and second, my session fall under the politics and migration decision. So actually I have no idea about the politics. Like this is about migration decision. So if you have question about politics, I might not be able to give a very good answer. Okay, so my talk is about the determinants of internal and international migration in rural Pakistan. And this question, to answer this question, we used 1986 to 1991 panel data that was collected by the IFRI, International Food Institution based in Washington. And that data was initially used by Adam, I think Adam Jr., to study the impact of remittances on basically asset accumulation in Pakistan. So, but before this data has not been used to study migration. And second thing I want to clear that this data was collected to study the poverty in Pakistan. So at that time they did not have intention to study migration or remittances. So anyway, it was rich in the sense that it has information about migration and remittances and about the how. So this one is household level data. Migration, basically it's a discrete dichotomous choice or binary choice, migrate or not migrate, and reduced form approach has been used in the history to study the migration decision, and these model mostly used by many economists, Taylor, Mora, Taylor, Emerson. So background and motivation. So basically why I choose this data to study internal and international migration in Pakistan. The reason is that basically Pakistan come in the top 10 remittances receiving country. So in 2013, the intensity or amount of remittances that Pakistan received was around $15 billion. And it is at some intense, and it increased from 1 billion in 2000 to 15 billion in 2013. And secondly, the migration stock from Pakistan has been increased from near about 4 million in 2000 to around 7 million in 2013. So like there is too much migrant stock from Pakistan to other countries. And my research is basically focus on the, like, not it is based on to study the destination country, but it is based on the origin country and intention to migrate, or that the household face different choices either to migrate internally or migrate internationally or stay home. So basically data set, as I said earlier, it was collected by IFRI, and it covered the period of 1986 to 1991, and it span over the 14 round, and it covered around 927 household. And basically we have to convert that data set from 14 round into 5 year. The reason was that the household level information or household level characteristics or their information was collected on the round basis, whereas the wealth information was basically collected on the year basis. And we have information about, so let's say in year 1, which is 1986 to 1987, it's covered round 1 to 6. And second year 1987 to 98, it covered from 7 to 9, 2 rounds, and third year it cover around 10 to 12 round, and similarly year 3 and year 4 and year 5, 13 and 14 round. So that was another reason that in our data set we basically transform that data set on yearly basis. This data set basically cover 3 provinces of Pakistan. There are basically at that time, 1986, there were 4 provinces: Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Sindh and Balochistan. So in 1986 or in 70, due to security reason or there was some reason, they did not cover the 4th province. They only focus on the 3 provinces: Punjab, Sindh and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So from Punjab they basically selected 2 districts, Badin, and in Punjab they basically have Faisalabad and Attock, whereas in Sindh they basically selected Badin, and from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa they selected Dir. And basically due to the nature of at that time data set to study the poverty in Pakistan, so these basically 3 districts, basically Badin, Attock and Dir, they were the poorest district of Pakistan, and whereas Faisalabad was comparatively rich. So just to make as a basically base category to study poverty. So that is one thing. Data set is unique in providing detailed socio-economic, demographic and socio-economic information on the nationally representative sample of rural household in Pakistan. So these are basically proportion of household that covered in the data set. So basically Faisalabad in Punjab, Faisalabad, Attock in Punjab, Badin in Sindh, Dir in NWFP, and there are total 20% of the household that cover in the data set was from Faisalabad, 21% from Attock and 30% from Badin, whereas 29% for Dir. And similarly, if we see the proportion of household which have never migrant household, we define these household as never migrant household, and if they have household member has internal migrant or they have member who is working within the country, we called it internal migrant household, and the household, if they have member of the household who is working outside the country, we call them international migrant household. So basically 67% of the household are never migrant household or non-migrant household, 24% of the household are internal migrant, whereas 9% of the household are internal migrant household. And similarly, if we look at the distribution of household by number between province and between district, so near about 380 households are from Punjab province, whereas 275 households are from Sindh, and 272 households are from NWFP. So methodology, basically we use the multinomial logic. First of all, we created a sample of household. If a household has internal migrant or international migrant, we call that household as migrant household, and if they do not have migrant, then we call it non-migrant. So first we just study the migration decision, migrant household and non-migrant household, and after that we look into the more disaggregate effect, whereas we separating household into internal migrant, international migrant and never migrant household. So basically we first estimate a binary logic model for migration and non-migration, and then we estimate 3 regime multinomial logic model for non-migrant household and international and internal. To assess the importance of each variable, it is useful to calculate the base probability of each destination at the means of all variable through the odd ratio. So we also calculated the probability. So first thing, basically this study is based on the new economic of migration, and this study is based on household level data. We do not have individual level information about the migrant, age of migrant, sex of migrant, and destination of migrant. That was another reason we focus on the origin. And so I will quickly go through the first logit result. Our results support the finding of several past studies that the land holding is a key determinant of the magnitude of migration, but emphasizes that there are other key determinants. As a whole, we deduct an intriguing size composition effect on the household probability of migration, and we find that additional household member increases the odds of migration by 20%. So household size, we find that household size is very important determinants of migration. And whereas we also find that the number of children and young women appear to have a significant and negative effect on the odds of migration, and whereas there is a 15% and 87% respectively, means that dependency argument means that if the household has number of children, if household have more children or more young women, there is less probability of migration, like there is a 15% less probability and 87% with respect to young women. We also see that a 10-acre reduction in the pre-migration land holding increases the odds of migration by 2%. And we find that there is a negative relationship between initial land holding and the migration. So maybe household is negotiating migration cost through land holding. So basically we define in our data set, we divide the wealth variable into pre-migration and post-migration variable, whereas and our focus is on the pre-migration wealth variable. So pre-migration money borrowed from formal, informal sector and sale of animal is statistically significant and negatively related to migration. However, if these markets are accessible to the household, then there is less need for migration. So we find only post-migration money borrowed from formal sources are positively and significant. This positive interaction effect illustrates the importance of migration for securing loan. And then we look into more disaggregated choices, and we divided our dependent variable into 0 for never migrant household, 1 for internal migrant household, and 2 for international migrant household. And in that case, our base category is never migrant household. And we also, these are the different lists. We also account for the time effect. We take into account time effect and district effect, and these are the main finding which we find for the internal and international migrant household. The household head in rural Pakistan are less likely to engage in internal and international migration. So we did not find any life cycle experience. Secondly, the dependency argument still hold for number of children and for number of women, but their intensity is different for internal and international migrant household. And now male age 12 to 30 positively related to the odd of internal migration only. So we find that the male are important determinants for only internal migration, but still it's not important determinants for international migration. And third, the same intra-household risk diversification strategy, we find that still the household, larger the family size, tends to favor both internal and international migration. And so we also find that 11% pre-migration land holding. So it explained that 11% for internal migration and 1% for internal migration means that if the household has probability to have a international migrant household, then there is a possibility that they will decrease their pre-migration land holding by 11%, whereas it is only 1% for the internal migration. And similarly, a pre-migration loan, so we also find that there is respectively the loan also explain migration decision in Pakistan. I will quickly go to overall conclusion. We find that internal migration household are somehow different from the international migration household, and wealth is discriminating factor. So there is also one policy issue. Viable migration policy in Pakistan means that reducing the cost of migration and well connected rural credit market, because in rural areas in most countries or even in Pakistan, that land holding is a very vital asset for livelihood or for their different activities. So we find that migration is negotiated through sacrificing the land holding. We also find that the level of regional development is not clear-cut driver of migration. Historical practices and existing migration network seems to be more important than the regional development. Thank you very much.